Good morning all. Today we have topic Introduction to Artificial Neural Network in Machine Learning subject. Before understanding artificial neural network, we must understand what is meant by the biological neuron. So starting from the topic that is a biological inspiration, human perform complex tasks like vision, motor control or language understanding very well. One way to build intelligent machine is to try to imitate the organization principle or human brain. Next we have human brain. The brain is highly complex, non-linear and parallel computer composed of some 10 to the power 11 neurons that are densely connected, which is nearly about 10 to the power 4 connection per neuron. We have just begun to understand how the brain works. A neuron is much slower, 10 to the power minus 3 second, compared to a silicon logic gate, 10 to the power minus 9 second. However, the massive interconnection between the neurons make up for the comparably slow rate. So in this point, we have the complex perceptual decisions are arrived at quickly within a few hundreds milliseconds. And next we have a 100 steps rule. Since individual neurons operate in a few milliseconds, calculations do not involve more than about 100 serial steps, and the information sent from one neuron to another is very small, that is in few bits. Plasticity. Some of the neural structure of the brain is present at birth, while other parts are developed through learning, especially in early stages of life, to adapt to the environment, that is new input. Now we have biological neuron. A variety of different neurons exist, that is motor neuron on centers of surround visual cells with a different branching structure. The connections of the network and the strength of the individual synapses establish the function of the network. We have the few terms which are related to biological neuron. First one, dendrites. Dendrite means nerve fibers carrying electrical signals to the cell. Next, cell body computes a non-linear function of its input. Next one, axon. Single long fiber that carries the electrical signals from the cell body to other neurons. Next one is synapses. The point of the contact between the axon of one cell and the dendrite of another, regulating a chemical connection whose strength affect the input to the cell. This is a diagram of biological neurons where the few points are marked over the diagram, that is dendrites, axon, cell body and synapses. In the previous slide we have discussed all these points. Now we have the term artificial neural networks, computational models inspired by the human brain, massively parallel distributed system made of the simple processing unit which is known as the neurons. Synaptic connection strengths among neurons are used to store the acquired knowledge. Knowledge is acquired by the network from its environment through a learning process. Now, we must have a question, that is, what is NN? Modeled in accordance with the human brain, a neural network was built to mimic the functionality of a human brain. The human brain is a neural network made up of the multiple neurons. Similarly, an artificial neural network, that is NN, is made up of the multiple perceptrons. So these things you can see over the diagram. There are the three layers are important. One is input layer, hidden layer, and output layer. Next we have a definition of ANN. An artificial neural network, that is ANN, is a computational model designed to simulate the way the human brain analyzes and processes information, and it is based on structure and functions of biological neural networks. It is used to solve problems that would be difficult for humans. ANN have self-learning capabilities that enable them to produce better results as more data become available. Now we have one more definition of ANN, that is artificial intelligence. And neural networks are one of the main tools used in machine learning. As the neural part of their name suggests, they are brain-inspired systems which are intended to replicate the way that we humans learn. Neural networks consist of input and output layers, as well as in most of the cases a hidden layer consisting of inputs as a units that transform the input into something that the output layer can learn. They are excellent tools for finding patterns which are far too complex or numerous for a human programmer to extract and teach the machine to recognize. Now, next question we should have, that is what are the properties of ANNs? The first one, that is learning from samples, that is followed by the labeled or unlabeled. Adaptability, that is followed by the changing the connection strength to learn things. Next is non-linearity. The non-linear activation function are essential. Next one is fault tolerance. If some one of the neurons or connections are damaged, the whole network still works quite well. So they might be better alternative than classical solution for problems characterized by high dimensionality, noisy, imprecise or imperfect data and a lack of clearly stated mathematical solution or algorithms. ANN is nothing without its characteristics. So we have the characteristics of the artificial neural network. First, it is neurally implemented mathematical model. Next, it contains huge number of interconnected processing elements called neurons to do all operations. Next, information stored in the neurons are basically the weighted linkage of neurons. Next, the input signal arrive at the processing elements through connection and connecting weights. Next we have, it has the ability to learn, recall and reanalyze from the given data by suitable assignment and adjustment of the weights. Next one is, which is the last, the collective behavior of the neurons describe its computational power and no single neurons carries specific information. So these are the characteristics of the ANN. Now we have a artificial neuron model. Inputs to the network are represented by the mathematical symbol, that is xn. Each of these inputs are multiplied by a connection weight, that is wn. So sum is equal to w1 x1 plus up to the wn xn. These products are simply summed fed through the transfer function, that is f, to generate the result and then produce the output. Here we have a diagram of the ANN. Here it is clearly mentioned that x0, x1, x2, x3 up to xm are the input for the R layers or the for the network. And we can say Wi is the wise and Wi1 to Wim, these are the weight which are known as the synaptic weights. And there is some functions are required for the summation, that is known as the summation function, which is represented by the neuron I. And now the activation function are also required. So activation function is represented by over here, that is f. Now we have the final the output, that is known as the AI. So AI is our output. As we know, each and every input layer has its own weight, that is represented by the W. But what is the role of the wise? So what is the wise? Wise is more important part to deal with in our neural network. An artificial neuron that is computes the weighted sum of its input, which is called its net input, and we need to add its wise and passes its this value through an activation function. We say that the neuron fires, that is becomes active if its output is above 0. So here we have a function which is known as the ei is equal to fni is equal to f summation of wij xj plus vi means the y's we are adding to our function, and the summation will be starting from the ij is equal to 1 to n. So this is the y's which you need to require. So purpose of adding the y's to minimize or reduce the error if the neurons is having the multiple or any kind of the error. So to our neural network should not be noisy. To avoid the such situation and to avoid the such circumstances, we need to add wise. Wise can be incorporated as another weight clamped to a fixed input of plus 1.0. This extra free variable, which is known as the wise, makes the neuron more powerful. So here you can see over the slide, that is we are using the function. In this function we are adding the wise, and these things we have seen to the previous slide as well. Without the activation function, our neural network will not work properly because some trigger or fire is required to make one layer to the another layer. So we have the activation functions. It is also called the scratching function as its limit, the amplitude of the output of the neurons. So many types of activation function are required. First one we have the linear, and that is a is equal to f and is equal to n. Next one we have the threshold, which is known as the hard limit. So as it is equal to 1 if n is greater than 0 and 0 if n is less than 0. And next we have the sigmoid is equal to 1 upon 1 plus e to the power minus n. And we have more and more functions which are known as the tanh, relu and other function. We need to go for the making the or applying the activation function to the our neural network. Now, for summary, we can say in about the artificial neural network, that is, our neural network is a massively parallel distributed processor made up of simple processing unit which is known as the artificial neurons. It resembles the brain into two respects. One is knowledge is acquired by the network from its environment through a learning process. Next one we have synaptic connection strengths among neurons are used to store and the required or acquire the knowledge. There are so many applications of artificial neural networks. Artificial neural networks have been widely used in various domains for pattern recognition, function approximation, associative memory. So these are the few references I have taken over here, but there are so many applications of ANN are available in our societies and market. If I talk about the various kind of the model which are related to NN, that is perceptron, adeline, of field network. So these are the early ANN models. But in the current models which are belong to the ANNs, we have the deep learning architectural, multi-layer feed-forward neural network, which is also known as the multi-layer perceptron, radial basis function network, and self-organizing networks are the today's era's network which are related to our artificial neural networks. ANN is implemented in deep learning architecture. So we need to understand what is mean by the deep learning. Deep learning is an advanced field of machine learning that uses algorithms inspired by the structure and function of the brain called artificial neural network. These are the few references I have taken to make this video for your help. In today's lecture, we have discussed what is meant by the artificial neural network and how artificial neural network is different from the biological neuron. So this is all required which is needed for in our society in today's era for the research oriented and for the learning purpose. There are so many models, there are so many varieties of the artificial neural networks are available in today's era. And in the earlier we have seen what are the models names we have seen. So all the important points we have discussed today in terms of the basic. So this is the from my side, and thank you for all of you for listening this video. Thank you once again.